Welcome to another episode of Table of Grace. My name is Jody Sandoval and I will be your host. Table of Grace is a space that will inform, heal, and hopefully inspire us all to live our best life. Today we're going to be talking about a very special topic to me. We're going to be talking about women's health, and we're going to focus on menopause. So I could not think of a better guest to bring to help us navigate this conversation than the one and only Miss Ginger Carver. Welcome to the Table of Grace.
Thank you, Jody.
I'm so excited to have you here today. I've talked to you there at the office. I didn't have to beg, thank God, but you did make me wait a little bit before you came on. So I am so thankful that you said yes. This is a conversation that is really important to me. But before we start, why don't you tell the listeners a little about you?
Well, I've been practicing with hormones and women's health, men's health, weight loss for about 14 years now. And it really has become a passion of mine, like learning about more functional medicine, trying to, look for root cause problems instead of just giving a Band-Aid for, with traditional medicine. Now, do I use, conventional medicine? Yes. But I like to dig a little bit deeper, look a little bit, more into, okay, what's really going on here, and kind of focus on the root cause of the problem instead of just going, oh, okay, your cholesterol's high, let's start you on a statin. And, so that's kind of been where I feel like I can stand out and really help people heal and, from a more organic standpoint, and look at their sleep patterns and stress levels and things like that to kind of help.
And cortisol levels.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know about that until I met you.
Most people don't, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here and you do a fabulous job. Is there something that makes you so passionate about it? I noticed that we do what we do in life because, especially when we do it and we love it, right? There's something that sparks that passion on the inside of us. Is there anything particular that kind of is your drive in doing this?
Well, I think, I've always loved to learn. And it's like I go to all these conferences like, okay, what can I do better? Mm-hmm. Like I have this problem child patient, right? And it's like, okay, we've done all these things and there's still something missing. There's still a piece that we haven't addressed. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And so, that's, I think, a little bit where my passion and drive comes from. But also, I always say, if you have a personal experience with something, it makes it personal to you. And so, I had a food intolerance. And so I made it my mission to go, okay, how can I make my gut the very, very best? How can I heal from this problem? And then in the end, it helps me help other people kind of do the same thing and go, okay, I know what you're feeling. I know how this has impacted your life. Here are some things that we can do to make that better.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. My mom always says we go through something to do something. Mm-hmm. So every time I'm in the middle of like this crazy season, I have to tell myself this is not about you.
Right.
So I'm 40, well, I'll be 49 soon. Mm-hmm. And I'm navigating this really difficult journey of menopause, perimenopause. But what is menopause?
So menopause, if you look it up, it's basically once a woman has stopped menstruating for 12 months. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's the technical, this is when you become postmenopausal, is if you haven't had a period in 12 months. But there's a lot that goes on before that, and so people go, oh, okay, am I in menopause? Once you hit 50, that's kind of the average age. People go through it earlier than that, but there's a whole lot going on with your hormones before that. At 25 is kind of like when you're at your best as far as hormone, where you should be at your best hormone levels.
Days.
Yes, the good old days. But then about 35, your testosterone starts to crash and burn, right? Mm-hmm. And then, sometime after that, and it depends on the person, then I see progesterone levels start to crash and burn. And then a little bit longer after that, then your, estrogen levels will start to wane, and then you'll start having the hot flashes and all the fun stuff. But what's nice is, if I get patients that start early and start looking at their levels before they hit 50, then we can kind of walk them through that perimenopausal up into menopausal stage, and they don't have these horrible symptoms. And why am I crazy? And why do I hate my husband? And why do I, have covers on and covers off and, all of these things. And so we can they can breeze through it a little bit easier because we're working with their hormones or what their hormones aren't producing for them anymore, and kind of get them, a little bit better response a little bit earlier.
So that would be perimenopause.
Yes, technically, yeah. That would be perimenopause is the time before you go into menopause.
Got you. So that's about maybe 35 on after.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we're not crazy. That's what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. I really appreciate you saying that. And I'm glad that you tell my husband that I'm not crazy too.
You're not crazy. No, I have patients that go, can I have my lab work so I can show my husband there really is something wrong with me? And I'm like, absolutely, 100%.
I love that you do the hormones, but you also do something else that's really specific. You look at the vitamins in our body. And I thought that was really neat because nobody's ever done that before. And vitamin D causes you to be sadder sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Iron can cause you to be a little bit more anxious sometimes.
Or lack of can make you tired as well. And so looking at, not just, okay, what is your, what are your white blood cells doing? What are your kidneys doing? Looking at, okay, well, there's all these processes going on in your body. If we can kind of look at all of them and kind of piece them together and go, okay, here's a couple of reasons why you might be tired. Here's a couple of reasons why you might be brain foggy, and then we can kind of, look at, how are your stress levels? They look pretty high. Is that true? And then we can kind of work through the best supplements or the best ways to get you optimized in feeling like a normal person again.
I love that. You work in layers. That's what I tell people. Mm-hmm. So the first time I went to you, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, and the reason why I wanted to bring you on the show is because I think most women don't want to talk about it. And it's in the secrecy and in the shame of something we shouldn't even be ashamed of. Sure. But I remember it being this paper, and it said, circle all the symptoms that you're feeling, and I was like, had the whole paper circled. Mm-hmm. And then I remember going back maybe 6 months later, and I maybe had 3 or 4 circled, and I literally almost cried. And you said, it's not that bad. And I said, no, I'm these are happy tears, because I remember when this whole page was circled.
Right.
What are some of the symptoms that women should be looking for to know, maybe I'm in perimenopause, maybe I'm in full menopause? What are some symptoms they should be noticing?
So with the testosterone or the lack of, right? So the libido issues. So they'll say, I don't really have sex drive anymore. Mm-hmm. My energy levels aren't that good. Progesterone affects more the mood. So they may have more anxiety, depression. They may be a little more irritable. They might have some fluid retention, or some headaches that they are not used to having. With estrogen, it's my skin's really dry. They're having some vaginal dryness or hot flashes, night sweats. Their hair might change, the texture might change a little bit. And so, and again, these are not all hormone related or sex hormone related. Your cortisol or your adrenal function significantly affects your sex hormones, right? Or how well they get to the receptors they need to go to. And so patients will come in and they're like, I know it's my hormones. The best one, they always say, I know it's my thyroid. And I'm like, it's probably not your thyroid. I know that's what you've read or Googled or whatever, but it's probably not your thyroid. It's probably your cortisol. But they can come in and go, I know it's my hormones. And I'm like, your estrogen levels are fine. Your hormones look really good. They look nice and balanced. It's not your hormones. It's probably your stress levels, your sleep patterns, any old traumas or new traumas that are affecting how well your estrogen or your hormones are actually able to get to the receptors they need to go to do their job. And so people have night sweats and they're like, but I'm having night sweats. And I'm like, but your estrogen's 80. It's not from your estrogen. Your estrogen is not the problem.
Right.
It is, it could be you're detoxifying from something. It could be, your toxic burden or your toxic load, and your body is trying to get some of that out at night and causing you to have, to be hot.
Yeah.
It could be your cortisol, not letting your estrogen actually work. It's not the amount you have in your body. It's where is it going, and is it able to function properly?
Where do you keep all this information? It's just like,
that's what the girls in the office, how do you know all this? And I'm like, I've been doing it a long time, but it is, I talk about it every day, so I have to, go, okay, let's look at all these things and let's correlate it with your symptoms, and then it'll make sense to you. And then we know where to start. And some people, they're like, they got so much going on. I'm like, let's just start here.
Right.
Then we
One layer at a time.
Let's start. This is phase one.
Right.
Okay, here's phase one. We're going to target kind of the big things that are going on. And then let's see if other things don't correct because we've corrected these. And then we'll go on to phase two and go, okay, here's where you were. Here's where you are now. Well, then now let's work on this.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we do it. I can't overhaul everything.
Well, and I love that because, and this is why I tell people you need to go talk to Ginger, because you don't look at one person and you're like, oh, this is what's going on with you. Like, you literally look at everything that's there and you're like, nope, your body doesn't say this, it doesn't say that. And that really impressed me because I think as a whole, just like you said with the thyroids, you hear, oh, it's probably your thyroid.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on this thyroid medication, which that's happened to me before too. And now I'm like, I probably didn't even need thyroid medication.
Well, but if your levels, people go, oh, I know it's my thyroid. And then they go, but my thyroid's fine, and I'm like, well, it probably is fine.
Yeah.
But your adrenal function, your thyroid, and your pancreas are all in a little triad. And so, two of my problem children that I was like, what is going on here? But I knew a little bit about their history, and their T4 was elevated, but their other thyroid levels were fine, right? But I knew they had some pretty traumatic things happen about a year before, and I was like, something is going on here, and I really think it's trauma related. And then I went to a conference, and I talked to a endocrinologist from Sweden, actually, and she said no, their T4 is not able to convert into T3, which it's supposed to do, and that's why it's high.
Wow.
And we got to get to the root of the problem, which is healing from the trauma, to get their thyroid to cooperate and look better on paper, basically, and work better.
Holistic medicine, like really looking how your environments can sometimes attack your physical health. That's why I love you, Ginger. I love it. I love it. How long do these processes last? Like this up and down roller coaster? Give me hope here.
So for menopause, how long does it typically last?
Yes.
About 5 years is kind of average.
Okay.
But, if we have, if we take some action and start on some hormones, then you don't really have to go through all of those symptoms, right? Like if we can keep you optimized and you balanced, well then, the process isn't going to feel like a process. It's just going to be, it's going to be a lot smoother. And so one of my patients I've had for a really long time, I've basically walked her through menopause. So she didn't really have much of the, she didn't have a lot of hot flashes. She didn't have a lot of the symptoms because we've been keeping up with her hormones every 3 to 6 months and making adjustments as needed. And so I'm like, you're lucky.
Yeah.
You actually did it the right way, even though you probably didn't realize you were doing it. But, that's why you don't feel like most people do if they go through menopause naturally or have a hysterectomy and then, choose to not do hormones. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I am dying. I'm crazy. There's something really wrong with me. And then, they might get put on Prozac or Ambien or something because they can't sleep and they're a little bit crazy. And
well, and that's the cool part. I remember when I first came to you, my doctor had just put me on birth control pills. And I was, 45-ish, 6-ish at the time. And I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And I remember you saying, I won't tell you what to do, but I can't see your hormones if you're on the pill. So you get to decide what you want to do first. How in the world can a woman manage the stress of menopause? Either going to see a great person like you that looks at the whole body, but maybe if they can't afford, how can they manage to kind of go through some of this?
So they can do, there's some over-the-counter stuff that they could try. There's some estrogen, Estroven or estrogen replacements that they can try that are effective. Like there are some effective supplements or things that you can do to manage the hot flashes or manage some of those the estrogen symptoms. Wild yam is a good progesterone replacement. That would be natural. Magnesium is a great supplement that helps with sleep, helps with anxiety. It helps with relaxation. You can take it at night. If you have a lot of constipation issues, doing a different type of magnesium can help with that. But so, it's let's look at, what are your symptoms? Everybody's different in what they experience. So some women, I always say, look at what your mom went through when menopause and when she went through menopause, and that can kind of give you a little clue as to when you're probably going to go through it and what symptoms you might have. So some women have horrendous hot flashes, no mood issues at all, and some women have no hot flashes and horrible mood issues. Some women have both, and some women have nothing. They just skate on through and they're fine. Exercise is another really good way of managing hormone symptoms at any age. Exercise is a great way that you can build your testosterone levels back up. If you're doing heavy weightlifting, that will naturally boost your testosterone levels, but also it helps keep your body detoxified. If you're eating really clean or eating, a good diet, you're not, filling up on a bunch of processed things, or, you're watching your carb intakes and things like that, you can really help your body manage itself a little bit better. I'm not going to say you won't have any hot flashes from doing that, but you will more likely minimize the symptoms by keeping your body hydrated, drinking good water, doing maybe some sauna things, doing some detoxification things. There's other ways. You don't have to find somebody like me to fix things.
That's really good. Women sometimes can't manage themselves, though. And we have these lovely people that live with us called husbands. Some of us have other partners, but I specifically have a husband. Can you give him some tips? Give these spouses some tips on how to support women who are struggling. Maybe they're having some challenges mentally as they're navigating menopause or perimenopause, or maybe just weight gain. How can spouses support women through this season?
Well, it's hard for them to be empathetic. They're more, analytical. They're not as emotional as we are, and that's okay. That's just how God made them, right? But if they have some education and some knowledge about, okay, this is what she's going through, communicating with them also. If you're knowledgeable about what's going on in your body, just tell them, hey, look, if I bite your head off, it's not because, I don't like you anymore. It's, my body's going through these changes and I can't control all the things that it's wanting to do to me right now. Like, back in, a long time ago, we probably would have been, eaten or be dead by now. Right. And so you wouldn't have had to worry about this stuff. But nowadays, that we're living longer, our body's like, you don't need to be reproductive anymore. And so I'm going to kind of shut down some of these systems. And so, they go through their own menopause as well. They don't go through it as drastically or as suddenly. Theirs is a lot more gradual. And so they don't recognize it always when it's happening. They'll come to me and say I'm just more tired than I used to be, or I don't have the drive that I used to, or, I used to love to go fishing and I don't, and it didn't matter. Like it could be pouring down raining and, 150 degrees and I still wanted to go fishing. And right now I just don't like thinking about, putting the boat in the water. It's like, oh, that's too much work, or I'm looking outside now, like, I know I need to mow the grass, but I just really don't want to. And that's not me. And so, kind of talking about that too, hey, y'all go through kind of your own thing. Maybe you need to go and get your stuff looked at too.
I'm glad you brought that up because we're talking about women's health today, but you don't only do women's health, you do men's health as well. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I love the way you're saying communication because it's important not just about other things. It's also important about how you're feeling physically.
Sure.
Or things you can't explain. Like, I don't know why I feel like this. I just don't want anybody next to me right now. You know? So I love that you're bringing that up and allowing that conversation to start. You do see husbands and wives in the clinic.
I do.
And so how can Mind Body Wellness Solution help women navigate menopause, but also help couples navigate changes just in their lives?
Well, I think, like I said, patients come to me and they're like, can you give me a copy of my lab so I can show my husband that I'm not crazy, right? And so that's part of it. And a lot of times I'll see the woman first, right? And then she'll go, okay, I'm going to bring my husband in here so you can look at him too and see what's going on with him. And occasionally I'll have the man come in first and he's like, I'm going to bring my wife in.
Yeah.
And I think the awareness is a lot more, there's a lot more awareness about hormone health and sexual health and all of that nowadays than there was 14 years ago when I started doing this. People thought I was going to kill them. and they were told that, like, she's trying to kill you.
Oh, wow.
But I think now there's so much more, information out there that, okay, this really is good for you. There's actually a 30% higher mortality rate in people who don't start hormones versus people who do within that first 10 years after going through menopause. And so it's not just about how we feel, it's about your bones also. It's about your heart, it's about your brain. There's a lot of other benefits to replacing hormones and kind of getting your body in check. Like, I always tell people, like, with their adrenal function, if you're running from a bear and you're 25, right, your body's like, we're good, sister, we got you, you keep on going, I'll take care of everything. When you get to be our age, it's like, I might just go ahead and let that bear eat you, and we're not going to be able to recover as well as we used to. And so people are seeing, and we've had longer years of life and more experiences and maybe traumas and things that we just kind of stuck down and don't heal from, and that all builds up and don't go away.
That's right.
If you're not addressing issues and you're just going to, like, I'll deal with that later, it's going to come out somewhere, and your adrenals are going to suffer from that, and that's going to impair some other systems that we'll have to address at some point.
Yeah, that's really, really good. What are some of you also do some really fun stuff like IV drips, and tell us a little bit about that.
So IVs, people are like, well, why would I get an IV? It goes straight into the vein. You get the full, 100% benefit versus taking something orally. It's going to be broken down by the liver. You're only going to get a percentage. And so you get a little bit, higher or a lot more concentration of the amino acid or the vitamin or whatever it is that we're doing. And so you get a little bit faster benefit. And so some people are like, hit me hard, right? Like, I really need to feel better by, for whatever, right? And, I go ahead and hit me with what all you got, right? Yeah. And so it's like, okay, let's do some glutathione, let's do some high-dose vitamin C's or whatever it is that your body is needing or what your particular issue is. And so we can kind of target that a little bit for a little bit faster result, right? And then, there's also some things that we can do specifically, like for, hey, I have a sinus infection, I don't want to take antibiotics.
Sure.
And so we can do some IVs to kind of fix your sinus infection and without having to do antibiotics that are going to have other side effects, killing off the good bacteria, right? And the bad things and the bad ones too. But so by doing injectable or doing an IV route versus an oral route, you're going to get a little bit more benefit that way. Yeah.
And I mean, you try it yourself. I've been at the office where you're just walking around with the IV. I'm trying this new one.
Yeah. Well, and if I try everything, and so it's like if I have a personal experience with it, then I know what is this patient going to feel like? How is it, what benefit did I personally see? And I have the girls do it too, because we're all going to have different experiences with different things, right? And so it's like, well, Felisa, felt this afterwards, whereas Brittany had this response, or, and same thing as we ask patients, this one's like, oh my gosh, halfway through the bag, I already felt better, right? Or I was driving home and I could already tell that I was, feeling better, having this whatever response.
Yeah. So you have something that people drive all the way to Victoria for. What is that called?
Hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah.
IV. And so people go, hydrogen peroxide IV. And I'm like, yeah, it's an oxidative treatment, right? It is disinfectant, right? And so it kills bacteria, it kills viruses, mold, which I have a lot of mold patients, cancer cells, even. So oxidative basically means that you're pushing oxygen into the cells, right? Good cells like oxygen. Bad cells don't.
Right.
And so when you're shoving out oxygen into these cells, it lyses them, or it makes them explode, right? And then we do, a lot of times I recommend doing a glutathione push afterwards to kind of clean up the trash. And so you've got these dead cells in there, and they release toxins of their own, right? And so that glutathione kind of comes in and helps your body detoxify the trash, the waste from those cells, and really helps people feel better faster. So some neurological patients that we have, they've one of them has MS, and so she drives from Houston to get these IVs because she has seen such a significant improvement since she started them, and nothing else has given her any relief or has shown those benefits. We have patients with like stage 4 prostate cancer that they can't do anything, and so coming in and getting those IVs really help their quality of life. Quality of life is a big deal, right? It's not always about, it's going to cure you, but if it helps improve your quality of life and your daily abilities to do things that you want to do and take care of your family or go to work or whatever it is, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah. You are one of Victoria's best kept secrets, so I had to have you here on the Table of Grace. How would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to know more about the clinic?
Well, they could call our office, or you can text our office and swing by. Our office is located at 3408 Sam Houston Drive, and our phone number or text number is 361-844-8866.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
You are amazing, and I am so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm grateful for you, too.
All right. Thank you. Well, guys, that's another episode of Table of Grace. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.